Up next in the broadcast, the Park administration spurs billions of dollars in corporate investment by loosening restrictions, while the government itself plans to pour billions of dollars in R&D funds for the information and communications technology sector. The main opposition Democratic Party continues to call into question the results of the 2012 presidential election by presenting more evidence that the nation's spy agency went on a blogging and Twitter campaign. U.S. job growth fails to meet the expected pace, but unemployment falls to a record low, and investors are happy to believe the numbers will keep the Fed's stimulus tapering at bay. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Wednesday, October 23rd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Oh Jin-ju filling in for Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin on the nation's economic front. Korean companies have agreed to speed up investments worth some $9.5 billion US.
This comes after the government streamlined red tape as part of its campaign to promote investment. Arirang News' economics correspondent Hwang Ji-hye reports.
The Korean government's campaign to stimulate corporate investment may be beginning to bear fruits. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance said Wednesday that several major Korean companies have decided to spend more than 10 trillion won, or roughly $9.5 billion US in coming months to build new production or quality control facilities. The decisions came after the government took steps to streamline red tapes after hearing difficulties those companies faced. SK Global Chemical, a subsidiary of the nation's leading oil refiner SK Innovation, will invest $950 million later this month to build a factory in the southeastern port city of Ulsan. S-Oil, Korea's third largest refiner, will spend $7.5 billion next January to expand its refinery also in Ulsan. Hyundai Motor, the country's largest automaker, is due to break ground on its $560 million testing facility next February. The planned investments have been stalled due to tough regulations. The government has eased the regulations and revised related laws to speed up corporate spending on facilities. President Park Geun-hye's government, which has given top priority to stimulating investment, has found roughly $25 billion worth of projects being held up due to restrictive regulations. The Park administration has vowed to continue removing unessential regulations to promote investment. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
The Korean government aims at creating 180,000 new jobs by the year 2017 through future tech investments.
The plan announced by the Science and ICT Ministry on Wednesday includes a 5-year blueprint that will focus on 10 key future technologies such as big data, 5th-generation mobile networks, and intelligent software. Investments will total some $8 billion US into R&D and falls in line with the Park Geun-hye administration's push for a creative economy where new ideas and innovative technologies lead to new jobs and markets. The allegations over last year's presidential elections keep coming on, and new evidence over an online smearing campaign continues to steal the center stage in the first annual parliamentary audit under the Park Geun-hye administration.
And today it triggered yet another row between the rival parties. Our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji has the details.
The rival parties are intensifying a war of words at the National Assembly over fresh allegations that the National Intelligence Service launched an extensive smear campaign against the opposition presidential candidates on the internet and on social networking services ahead of the December election. The allegations come from testimony at a parliamentary audit on Monday by a senior prosecutor who headed a special probe into the NIS scandal before being dismissed from the team last week. The Defense Ministry's announcement this week that 4 members of the military's secretive cyber warfare command unit posted comments in favor of the ruling party on blogs and on Twitter before the December poll also added fuel to fire. The main opposition Democratic Party says the findings show that the integrity of the 2012 presidential election was compromised. They want President Park Geun-hye to apologize and provide measures to prevent similar incidents from recurring. Some Democratic Party lawmakers are even saying the 2012 presidential election was rigged and that the party must rethink whether it can accept its result. The ruling Saenuri Party has in turn strongly criticized the opposition party for questioning the legitimacy of last year's election. This row between the rival parties over the spy agency scandal has taken center stage, overshadowing the ongoing annual parliamentary audit that should focus on evaluating major government policies. If the standoff continues, it is likely to delay the passage of next year's budget and other important bills aimed at supporting President Park's economic policies, after the audit ends in early November. Some say the bipartisan row may even push the parliament to adopt a provisional budget for next year, which would be unprecedented. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
With the security situation in the Asia-Pacific region in flux, the Korean military plans to boost its defense capabilities in the sea and in the air within the next 10 years.
And in particular, officials want more ships and stealth detecting capabilities. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Han Da-eun has more.
The Korean Air Force reportedly plans to procure stealth-detecting radars by mid-2020 to further boost the nation's air defenses. A military official speaking under the condition of anonymity said the Air Force requested the procurement of stealth-detecting radars in 2011, a request the Joint Chiefs of Staff accepted the following year. The official added it hasn't yet been decided whether to import the radars from overseas or to develop them with Korea's own technology. The move comes as military documents show that Korea's neighbors, particularly China, Japan, and Russia, are racing to lay hands on stealth fighter jets with specific plans to either procure or develop them sometime between 2016 and 2019. Meanwhile, the Korean Navy is hoping to push up the timeline for the procurement of 3 Aegis destroyers, previously scheduled for the year 2020. During a parliamentary audit at the Navy headquarters earlier this Wednesday, Navy Chief of Staff Hwang Ji-hye expressed confidence that the new timeline was feasible and that the nation would be able to deploy 3 additional KDX-3 Aegis ships before the year 2022. The Joint Chiefs of Staff is set to discuss the details of building the destroyers next month upon the request of the Navy. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
The Korean government is lambasting a YouTube video posted by the Japanese government that lays claim to the Korea-controlled Dokdo Islets.
Korea's foreign ministry summoned Japan's ambassador to Seoul on Wednesday afternoon and demanded that Tokyo remove the video immediately. The ministry made clear that Korea will never tolerate the Japanese government making unjustified claims to the islets based on, quote, mistaken historical perception or attempts to promote its claims internationally. Earlier in the day, the ministry described Japan's act as a provocation that will deteriorate Korea-Japan relations. The YouTube video contends that Japan gained sovereignty over the rocky islets in the 17th century and reaffirmed its claim in 1905.
Real incomes are rising steadily here in Korea, and despite signs of global economic recovery, consumers remain timid when it comes to spending.
So where are Koreans spending and saving? To tell us where consumer sentiment is at the moment, we're now joined by Dr. Kim Byung-ju, head of KLMP Consulting and a longtime commentator on Arirang News. Welcome to the program.
Good evening.
Well, Dr. Kim, is there really more money in the hands of consumers, and if so, why are they reluctant to spend?
Well, if that about the first part of the question itself, the answer could be yes and no, because on average, the numbers are showing the Korea's real income for the household are rising. But we have to be careful about the word average because there are other households that do not see that kind of income rising as well. But anyway, going with the average itself, the real income is increasing, but the spending is decreasing as a whole. And that's based on the quarterly figures for the last 4 quarters in Korea right at this point. With the fast aging trend itself, more and more Koreans seem to expect that they will get to live longer, and for that they have to save, set aside money for their retirement. But the problem is, however, while people are feeling that greater pressure for the savings for retirement itself, a lot of people are, increasing number of people are getting anxious about the fact that they are not actually saving enough set aside for their post-retirement age.
So, as you said, people are not spending enough because they're worried about their life after they retire. So, but yet it seems that they're also unable to save enough for retirement. Why is this?
Many different reasons for that as well. For one thing that I can think about is the young generation changing life styles for them. For one, that is increasing number of younger generation. They're after college education, for instance, they're postponing employment. They're saying they're looking for jobs and better jobs and jobs that parents can be proud of. That means they're actually staying with the parents themselves. And that means parents themselves, they have to make more money to finance not only their cost of living, but also these young adults who are continue to live with them as well. So there is that greater cost of living. And also as these children are thinking about their marriage, which is not taking place as early in their age spectrum, there is a greater expectation for greater cost for marriage itself. So that's again the burden for the parents. So more and more need for spending for younger generation, and while doing so, less and less money for themselves for their post-retirement age. That is the dilemma here.
Well, aside from the retirement issue, you briefly mentioned that job insecurity is another factor constraining consumer spending. Are there many other factors that are just coming in as a perfect storm to hamper consumer spending?
Right. To answer that question, let me go back to one of the previous points. We talked about average, the concept average here. That means what's happening in Korea is actually the bottom half of the income ladder, those people who belong to that range, actually they have been experiencing decreasing income itself, indeed. So, indeed, what we are seeing is a decrease in disposable income. So, it's not that people are setting aside money for savings, but more and more Koreans actually at the lower part of the income ladder seem to be experiencing the reduction of the income, disposable income itself. That is a real problem here. The overall costs are rising together. So, that also further decrease takes away big chunks from the disposable income. So that's why people are experiencing these kind of difficulties.
And a rise in domestic consumption is essential for economic revitalization, but it was not too long ago the nation was concerned about low savings rate.
Right.
So what needs to be done?
The thing is, low savings rate itself is still in place right now. And as I mentioned, the reduction of the disposable income itself is a question. And for that, could be a long list of prescriptions that could be talked about. One of the things that we can think about within political circles and political leaders and national leaders would be redistribution. Some of the progressive thinkers are saying, well, the increase of welfare actually could help in terms of increasing the overall disposable income for those people at the lower income strata itself. So that could be one factor that could be thought about. And also one important factor, one key issue that the current administration is emphasizing, job creation. There are a lot of views about, these part-time jobs, what kind of difference they can make. At least in theory, in the minds of economists, this kind of part-time jobs could actually contribute, increasing the overall disposable income here. So those kind of issues need to be thought about more carefully, and maybe there should be further drive into implementing those kind of ideas into practice.
Well, a lot of questions there, but as you mentioned, a lot of possible solutions. Thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for coming in.
Thanks.
Over in the U.S., fewer workers found new jobs in September than expected, indicating the country is facing an uphill battle to sustain an economic recovery. But investors welcome the weaker than expected jobs report as it stoked expectations that the U.S. Central Bank would further delay the reduction of monthly bond purchases. UDN reports.
The United States turned in a worse-than-expected jobs report, suggesting the country's economy was losing steam even before a budget fight led to a government shutdown. Employers added about 148,000 workers to payrolls in September, falling far short of the 180,000 that many had expected.
But you have businesses that were scared by what happened during the recession. The pace of the recovery has been disappointing, so they've been reluctant to hire. And also, I think you have concerns about the health care law that may be weighing on hiring as well.
On the upside, the number of jobs added were still enough to bring the unemployment rate down to the lowest level since November 2008. The unemployment rate fell by 1/10 of a percentage point to 7.2% in September. Job prospects, however, doesn't look too good for the month of October, as the 16-day government shutdown and lingering political uncertainties are expected to take a toll on employment.
In terms of jobs, there's no question that the shutdown, the uncertainty associated with the brinksmanship over the debt limit are going to, reduce the number of jobs we otherwise would have got in October, and it's a shame.
Investors, however, were upbeat as they expected the U.S. Federal Reserve to keep the monetary stimulus until early next year, given the poor jobs report. The S&P 500 closed higher by 0.57%, hitting yet another record high. The Dow Jones and the Nasdaq also rose by 0.49% and 0.24% respectively. Asian markets also firmed in early trading, tracking Wall Street gains. Yurian, Arirang News.
And now on to the latest international efforts to end the conflict in Syria. The Friends of Syria group is meeting in London to try to keep next month's Syria peace conference talks on track. However, that could prove to be difficult as the Syrian opposition has said it will only back talks aimed at President Bashar al-Assad's exit. Ji Myung-gil has more.
Foreign ministers from the 11 countries of the so-called Friends of Syria group are meeting in London this week to arrange the Geneva II peace talks on ending the war in Syria, slated for next month. But they're having a harder time than anticipated. The opposition Syrian National Coalition says it will not participate in the conference if Assad's removal from power is not a stated goal of the meeting.
If the aim was to remove the criminal from power and the war criminals are tried, then we welcome Geneva II. This is our stance.
Another obstacle is that President Bashar al-Assad has indicated that he will not step down and even plans to run for re-election next year. But Western powers agreed that Assad should have no role in the future government of Syria and urged the opposition to join the talks. Britain's Foreign Secretary William Hague said the group's participation is vital, while U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said talks are the only option.
This war will not come to an end on the battlefield, I believe, and I think most people believe. It will come to an end through a negotiated settlement.
As the talks continue, efforts to create a united front against Syria suffered another setback Tuesday when Saudi Arabia said it would no longer cooperate with the U.S. in the conflict. Saudi Arabia's intelligence chief has reportedly said the kingdom will make a major shift in relations with the U.S. in protest against its perceived inaction on Syria and its overtures in Iran. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
It's looking more and more likely that kimchi, Korea's staple food, will be added to UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity list this December. Korea's Cultural Heritage Administration said Wednesday that kimchi has now been given the status of inscribed by the UNESCO body responsible for reviewing nominations. Once an item is recommended as an inscribe, it almost always makes the final cut. A final decision will be handed down by UNESCO at a committee meeting this December. Korea currently has 15 items on this list, including the traditional singing style of pansori and the traditional song Arirang. Apple has unveiled its latest iPads with an eye on recovering its market share in an increasingly competitive market. The new iPad will be lighter, thinner, and has a new name, the iPad Air. Its smaller tablet, the iPad mini, will have a higher resolution display and new colors. Son Jung-in runs us through Apple's latest product lineup.
It's called the iPad Air. As its name suggests, Apple's newly released tablet is light, 20% thinner and 28% lighter than its current model. But the screen size is the same, with some of the surrounding bezel having been trimmed by 43%, giving users more room to play.
Thinner, lighter, more powerful than ever before, and incredibly, excitingly new in so many ways that it deserves a new name.
The device will go on sale November 1st at Apple stores in 42 countries, with prices starting at $499. As if that weren't enough for fans of the tech company, Apple also revealed a revamped iPad mini. The new device is physically identical to the miniature version of the original, but it too is thinner and lighter, and for the first time comes with Retina display. The new Mini will start at $399, while the price of the existing Mini has dropped to $299. Both the iPad Air and iPad Mini pack the same speedy A7 processor as the iPhone 5S and comes in two color options, silver and white, and space gray and black. Apple's latest release is sure to put pressure on its competitors, but with rivals Microsoft, Nokia, and Amazon all plugging rival devices in the coming months, it looks like the competition is just getting started. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
We're less than 1 day away from the start of the KBO's Korean series.
Media Day was held today, and Stephen Che joins us with all the latest. Hello there.
Hey guys, the managers and players of the Samsung Lions and the Tusan Bears greeted the press at the Daegu Sports Complex on Wednesday. Lions manager Yoo Jung-il said his team will be relying on a handful of key players like pitcher Cha Woo-chan, who's pitching in Game 2, and home run king Lee Seung-yup. Meanwhile, Bears manager Kim Jin-wook said he was proud of his team's hard work and would ride out the good luck they've been enjoying until the end. Samsung's Yoon Sung-hwan and Tusan's No Kyung-eun will face off in Game 1 of the Korean series at 6 p.m. Thursday. Let's now head on over to the National Sports Festival in Incheon, where the gold medal drama continues to excite sports fans. First, Olympic gold medalist Yang Hak-sun, who injured his foot on Monday, came back with his foot taped to secure gold in men's vault. Next up, Cha Jae-hyuk swept 3 golds in weightlifting in the 77-kilo division, redeeming himself from his injury in last year's Olympics. Meanwhile, swimmer Park Tae-hwan goes for his 5th gold medal on Thursday. Now let's leave that there and go to Wednesday's top KBL matchups, starting with number 1 Mobis Phoebus taking on the winless Anyang KGC. Both teams played hard, with Mobis looking to stay perfect and KGC trying to win their first game in 6 tries. First half action gives Mobis the slight edge, but KGC comes back and takes the reins in the 4th. The team's Sean Evans has a monster night, scoring 25 with 16 boards, and KGC beats Mobis 85-81. Now let's head on over to Busan, where the KT Sonic Boom hosted the ET Land Elephants in their first meeting this season. KT pounded ET Land all game as Joe Ira Clark steps up and scores 26 points in his debut for KT. KT beats ET Land 80-68. Now that does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Today we got another day of bright autumn weather in the capital, but I hear it's sprinkled on the East Coast.
Yes, for more details on the weather, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Hello, Bo-kyung.
Hey guys, temperatures are forecast to drop starting tomorrow afternoon, but it's no surprise because today is Hangang, which is one of the 24 seasons, marking a drop in the morning and night temperatures. Now moving on to our satellite map, as you can see, we have clear skies across the map due to a high pressure system from China, but we're seeing light clouds in the Gangwon and Gyeongsang provinces along with Jeju. Now today it was cloudy and rainy in some parts of the East Coast region, but it was nice and sunny elsewhere. Tomorrow looks to be similar to today with the average daytime high around the nation reaching 21 degrees. However, please keep in mind that there will be strong winds along with a drop in temperatures, so brace yourselves for colder weather. Taking a look at tomorrow's highs, Seoul hits 19 degrees. Meanwhile, there may be morning showers in Busan with a high of 21. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon drops to 9 degrees in the morning, reaching 19 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, Dokdo and Kumgang should peak at 19 and 12 degrees respectively. That's all for now, and I'll be back with more updates after midnight.
Well, that's our broadcast on this Wednesday night. I'm Oh Jin-joo in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon.